Good morning, everybody. I hope you're having a great morning. I'm on bright and early before we even go to Minyan, which will happen in 15 minutes, because I have an announcement to make. It's something that many people want to make and would be excited to make, but they haven't been able to. I have antibodies. So what does that mean? So for a while already, I've been wanting to take a test to see if we have antibodies. Because over Passover, Gruni and some of my kids lost their taste and smell. And I didn't feel well for maybe a half a day or a day. And my kids were convinced that we must be sick and we must have the virus. But everything was moved on very quickly. And I've been in touch with my doctor the whole time. I said, hey, I want to take the test. And our dear doctor, who's also a Shoal member and a dear friend, Susie Gordon, says, look, a lot of the antibody tests are not so accurate, and there's a lot of false positives, etc. She says MGH is working on a test that's going to be pretty accurate or more accurate. And why don't you wait till then? And then on Tuesday, I get a text from her. I think it was Tuesday. And she says, Wednesday morning, she says, Rabbi Mendy, there's a test waiting for you. So I go into 850 Boylston Street. The precautions were very good, and we went to get blood drawn, and they were amazing. The people that work there, kudos to them. It's not easy to do what they have to do, but they did it, and they did an amazing job, and we got our blood tested. And then yesterday, I was shopping in Restaurant Depot for the Shabbos packages, and I get a call, and it's the doctor, and she says, I want you to know that you have antibodies. And I said, oh, wow. She says, and of course, there's numbers within the antibodies, and I have pretty high antibodies. And so does Gruni have antibodies. So what does that mean? Does that mean that I'll walk around without a mask outdoors? Of course not. Does it mean that I'm going to be less cautious? Possibly. But I wanted to use it as a beginning to Dvar Torah. It's funny because yesterday I was speaking to a friend who was celebrating his birthday. My friend Adam called him to say happy birthday. And while I was talking to him, I said, hey, you know, I told him I have antibodies. And he says, boy, I don't even know what to say. You're supposed to say congratulations or mazel tov. What do you tell someone if they have antibodies? Good question, huh? So I was thinking about this a lot. There's a basic concept we read in the Torah and we study about, which is called Makdim HaKadosh Baruch Hu Refuah L'Maka. That God always prepares the healing before He gives the sickness. There's never a challenge, there's never a struggle, there's never an obstacle that happens in the world that doesn't give you the healing before it happens. For example, the rabbis tell us that the day the temple was destroyed, the Messiah was born. Because there is no sickness that comes without a healing before. God in His great and abundant kindness always gives us healing before He gives us sickness. Makdim HaKadosh Baruch Hu Refuah L'Maka. What is an antibody? When they test you for antibodies, they don't test you to see if you have the virus. They test you to see if your immune system that God gave you has built up the strength to fight this virus and to block it from coming to you. Now, of course, they warn you, you know, we don't know enough about the virus, and they tell you that it could be that they warn you that it could be you could still get it, or it could be you could still infect people. They're not telling you for sure. But the reality is that antibodies usually tells you that you can't get infected and you can't infect others because your body has built up the immunity to fight this virus. One of the greatest gifts that God gave us is our immune system that naturally learns to fight viruses and things that want to hurt the body. In fact, many of the vaccines we have is a little bit of the sickness that it puts into your body, so your body should naturally react and fight it before it could get in a big dose. How remarkable is that? That Hashem has given us the gift that our own body is usually able to fight off, if it's healthy, is able to fight off these viruses. But there's also the spiritual aspect to this, and that's what I wanted to speak to you about it. You know, you probably heard me speak about the Tanya many times. And the Tanya is the basic and foundational Hasidic book on Chabad Hasidism. And it was written by the Alter Rebbe, the founder of the Chabad movement. And the Alter Rebbe speaks about the idea that we have two souls within us. We have the godly soul and we have the animalistic soul. The animalistic soul, the body, is selfish. It always wants what's best for itself and is always seeking to protect itself and do what's going to benefit it. It's a struggle, something we deal with as human beings. Everything is about me, I. But God, when He gave us the body that's selfish, He also gave us the antibody, which is the soul. The soul is the direct opposite of the body. The body wants whatever is good for itself. The body wants materialism. The body wants physical pleasure and pleasure now. The soul is transcendent. The soul is selfless. The soul is godly. The soul wants to do for others. The soul wants to rise above. The soul sees beyond itself, beyond the moment, beyond what I want now. And Alter Rebbe explains that our whole life is like two people fighting over one city. The city is the human being, and there's the evil inclination within it, and then there's the godly soul, and they're both fighting. Who's going to control? Am I going to be a selfish person who's always going to think about myself first, or is always going to do what's best for me, or am I going to be a selfless person and give myself over to help others? So, the godly soul, in a certain sense, is the antibody for the selfishness of the human being. It's there to help us overcome and grow beyond seeing only what's best for ourselves. Take, for example, Shabbos, right? So it says God created the world in 6 days, and on the seventh day He rested. It doesn't say on the seventh day He finished. The world is constantly continued to be created. It says on the seventh day He rested. What's the seventh day? The seventh day is the time that we take. It's our antibody to the 6 days of the week. We live in a world where constantly people are tempted to gain an upper hand, to win over someone else, to get more materialism, to get a bigger house, to work harder. Me. What could I do? How could I be better? And then comes Shabbos. Shabbos is that one day a week when God rested. It's that moment when we get the antibody to fight off the virus of the week, where we're only thinking about ourselves. Shabbos tells us 1 second. There's not just a body, there's not just an evil inclination, there's also a godly soul. There's also living for a purpose. There's also living to be able to make an impact in this world, to be able to change things. That's why, in fact, on Shabbos, the rabbis tell us we get a second soul. What does it mean we get a second soul? God gives us the extra dose of selflessness that we could focus that whole week and be able to say, what did this past 6 days do to me? Where did I focus more on my body or my soul? Was I more selfish or was I more selfless? That's the power of Shabbos, and that's the power of Torah. You see, the rabbis tell us in this week's Torah portion, there's a verse that says that God says He gave the Levites to Aaron and his sons from amongst the Jewish people to service God, to service the Jewish people in the tent of the tabernacle, and to forgive for the Jewish people, and there shouldn't be a pandemic amongst the Jewish people, the children of Israel. If you read the verse, and it's verse 19 in chapter 8 in this week's Torah portion, you'll realize something very interesting. He speaks about the Levites being there to pray for the Jewish people, to do the service for the Jewish people in the tabernacle, and the Jewish people shouldn't have a pandemic. But he mentions the word Bnei Israel, the Jewish people, 5 times. Anyone that knows grammar or knows language knows that you mention them once and then you just keep on saying them. You don't have to each time say Bnei Israel, the children of Israel. So why does he keep on telling us Bnei Israel? So Rashi right away says, you know the term high five, right? You stick up your hand and you give someone a high five. Well, guess what? Everything originates in the Torah. Basically, God was giving the Jewish people a high five. He mentions the Jewish people's name 5 times connect and to compare to the 5 books of the Torah, to celebrate and to praise the Jewish people who are so connected to the 5 books of Torah. What is the 5 books of the Torah? What is the Chamisha Chumshe Torah? You know what it is? Why is God celebrating it? And what's so special that the Jewish people are connected to that? You see, what do we say every day when we make the blessing on the Torah? Asher nasan lanu Torah emes, that God gave us a Torah of truth. The Torah is the greatest antibody to lies, to falseness. The Torah is the epitome of truth. The Torah is about seeking out the ultimate truth. We live in a world that's full of lies. Everyone uses whatever they want for political reason, for gain. Everyone, whatever they could grab that will help their cause, if it's true or it's not, if it's a false narrative, it doesn't make a difference. They use it. Because, you know why? Because it's going to help them. But the Torah is the greatest antibody to lies, to falseness. And the Jewish people, for eternity, have known this truth and have embraced the 5 books of Torah. And that's why God celebrates them when he speaks to the Levites. And he mentions the name 5 times, corroborating to the 5 books of Moses. That we should remember to celebrate the truth of Torah. That ultimately, you can love everything. You can love yourself. You can love your home. You can love your family. But you have to love the truth more than everything. And I'll finish with a story. So they say the story about this emperor who had no children and he had to pick a new king. And he wasn't sure who to pick. So he made an announcement. He called all the kids in town and he said, I'm going to give you each a seed. And I want you to go home and plant it and bring it back in a year. And whoever has the nicest tree is going to become the king. Well, guess what? All the kids went home and they got to work. And one kid, Leo, went home and he tried to plant this tree, a seed. And whenever he did, every day in the morning he came to look, nothing grew. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, he was terrified. A month, 2 months. Finally, the day comes the next year and all the kids in school were talking how beautiful their tree is and how it's growing. And wow, they're going to be the next emperor. Guess what? This kid was embarrassed. He didn't even speak about it. When the day came, he told his mother, I'm not going. His mother says, you got to go. You always have to try. You did your best. You have to go, and you have to bring it to the king. So the kid went, and he came to the emperor. Everyone was schlepping these big baskets, these trees, whatever. It was gorgeous. And this kid never comes with a pot plant with a seed inside. And everyone brings the kid, hides in the corner. He's embarrassed, Leo. And after a while, the emperor looks around, and he announces the winner, and he calls up Leo. Leo says, oh my gosh, the king realized I'm an embarrassment, that I'm a failure, and I'm going to get punished. I came without a seed that's not planted. And the king makes the announcement, Leo was the new king. Everyone's shocked. What are you talking about? The kid didn't plant anything. Look what we gave you. The king says, you know what I did a year ago? I gave you each a boiled seed that can't grow. You all went home, you tried to plant it, you saw it wasn't growing, so you switched it for something else. You lied. You weren't honest. Leo was the only kid who was honest. He tried to do the best with what I gave him. But most importantly, he didn't lie. And that's why he's worthy to be the emperor. The Torah says the word B'nai Yisrael 5 times. Because we connect to the Torah, the 5 books of Moses, which is ultimately the greatest antibody to lies. It's the ultimate truth. So we have Shabbos, that's an antibody. We have the Torah, that's an antibody. We have our godly soul, that's the ultimate antibody. And we have to remember the greatest gift that Hashem gave us, that Makdim Refuah L'Makkah, that before he gave us any sickness, he gave us healing. So I have antibodies. We all have antibodies. We have to find them. We have to use them to protect ourselves from all viruses. Have a great Shabbos, and may the beauty of Shabbos bring us joy and celebration and health. Shabbat Shalom.